So Marty, you ready for this?
Yeah, but you got to watch out what you're going to say now because the recording's in progress. So just be careful. All those trade secrets. We'll have to wait till later. Hey everybody, welcome. We'll say what you want. Garth does say what he wants. Like I'm going to stop Garth from saying things. Come on.
When it's recording, I can't always say the things because like Becky are on here and she may tell somebody.
Uh-oh, these guys again. Oh, funny. Well, very good. We'll wait as people come in. We'll probably start just a minute after or so, but glad that you are all here to talk and learn a little bit about Endpoint Insights, which I'm just going to read it off the slide here. Apparently, we're going to talk about inventory management for admins. Were you aware of this, Garth?
Well, Jeff roped us into all of this thing. And then what I found interesting is Jeff says, okay, we're going to do this thing. And then Jeff's not here. We got an upgrade to Gina, which everybody say hi to Gina. She's hiding in the background.
Yeah, didn't Jeff say
everyone.
Jury duty? Wasn't that his?
Yeah.
Excuse?
Jury duty. Sure. So where's everybody from? And by the way, it's Gina with a J. I found that interesting myself too.
Thank you for the correction.
Now we get the corrections going through the chat. Very good.
Oh, look at this. We got somebody from Finland. I wonder if they were watching the hockey game too yesterday.
Oh, I hope they enjoyed it. Finland 4-1. Yes, absolutely it was.
Yeah.
That one goal was pretty sweet behind the legs and from facing the other direction, but the four were sweeter. That's for sure.
I was watching the Canada Slovakia game. I had PVR'd it, so I watched it last night. So that was a good game. Surprisingly, a really good game.
Good deal.
Look at this. We got even people from Minneapolis, in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And Miami Beach. MMS was great there. Denver,
there you go.
UK, Scottsdale, that's where what was it, MMS Desert Edition, that was a good one too.
Cool.
So how far you want to start in about a minute or so?
Yeah, let's start in a minute or so, just as people finish coming in here. And yeah, pretty excited to talk about Endpoint Insights. Love it. North Dakota. I heard there were people from there.
No, not North. Oh, it's only Courtney.
Oh, wow.
Did you know it's her birthday today?
I don't think that's right.
Her birthday.
Garth loves birthdays. He just wish everybody had a birthday every day.
Well,
All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started, Garth? What do you think?
All right, let's go get started here.
All right.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. This is the part 1 of our 5-part series around Endpoint Insights. Today's session is going to focus on inventory management for admins. As a formal introduction to our 2 fabulous presenters, we have Garth Jones, Senior Architect for Endpoint Insights, and Marty Miller, Solution Engineer. Fun facts, Garth loves 80s movies. What's your favorite 80s movie though, Garth?
There's too many to describe, but I mean, the one that I was hoping to watch while I was down in the States was a crazy one called Up the Creek. Basically, think of a knockoff of Animal House.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then Marty, you frighteningly know little about the multiverse concept.
I have watched a few movies about it recently, so I'm getting better on it. Some Spider-Man, a little bit of Doctor Strange. So we'll see. We'll get there.
All righty. Well, with that, I will pass it over to you guys.
Excellent. Who's starting, Garth? Am I
I
starting
think
or are
it's
you?
you, man. I think it's
All
you.
right. So let's look at an agenda. It's going to be pretty simple agenda. If you've ever been in one of our webinars before or seen us live, the agenda really can kind of get shaken up depending on what people are interested in talking about. But also, we do want to have some things that we talk about, specifically inventory for in admins and endpoint insights. The biggest part of it's going to be demo. We would like to show you this stuff rather than talk about it. And then we'll have some Q&A. Now, that doesn't mean that you can only have Q&A during the Q&A time. If you have a question, please go ahead and put it in that question and answer, or the question like section or whatever. Go ahead and put it in there and we will answer them as we're going along as well. If there's something there, try and put it in the Q&A rather than in the chat, just because sometimes it's hard to find what's going on in the chat with how many people are talking, which is good. If you want to talk to each other in the chat, that's great. Just be nice. So we'll answer questions as we go along. Garth, I believe you want us to watch a video.
No, this is a movie. We want to talk, like everybody wants to see Breakfast Club and Mannequin, so we'll watch a movie.
Cool.
So you click on it and let her roll. Apparently, you and Jeff did something to the whole thing. So,
okay. Well, it made me go forward.
hang on a second here. Wow. First, apparently we didn't pray to our technical god or demo gods this morning. Oh, Marty. Just a second here. So yeah, I'm just looking up the email with your name in it. And
okay, sounds good.
This thing to you
hey, we have our first question that I can answer. Will there be a copy of the deck available after the presentation? So we are recording. If you were here at the very beginning, we made sure that Garth knew we were recording. And the recording will be available after the session. So don't worry, there will be a recording of the session, hopefully with some information in it rather than just Garth looking through his email.
So I've slacked you the video, by the way.
What's that?
I've slacked you the video, so you should have. Did you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
So now.
Oh, okay. If you can make it large screen, that would be great. What the heck is this? We're not getting any audio there.
Oh, I can hear it.
I know it's a little dancey tune.
Yeah, I'll bop my head.
Yeah. We deliberately did it so you didn't have any talking on it. Wow, that's laggy. So, in a nutshell, what that video was trying to show you was how you go from one computer to the next to record down all the serial numbers, whether it's the computer, the make, model, serial number, whether it's the monitors, whether it's the printers and all this. And I'm sure all of us have done this at some point in time in our lives. And it was a cutesy video that had some really boppy music that we couldn't hear from Marty, but it was a representation about how all of us of IT have taken a list and run across this whole thing. So before I go much more into that, I just want to go into a quick poll and say, how many people have been in this situation where they've had a list and then required to go visit all the computers in your environment?
So
Or
Garth, the first time, as I was an intern starting in IT, one of my very first jobs that I had to do was take a bunch of IBM blades that we were pulling out of a blade server that we were getting rid of, write down the serial number, how much RAM it had, what size hard drive it had, whether it was an SSD or a regular spinny drive. So the struggle was real, man.
yeah. So similarly, in my early part of the career, I would end up going into the service desk, and I was responsible for 3,000 computers. We literally would run around to all the computers and write down the make, model, serial numbers of that, and it was amusing because what would end up happening is there were a lot of typos and all the rest of it. And then we got SMS at the point in time, and then that changed. So we no longer had to go out to all computers until the director says, well, what about monitors? So then we still had to go out, but it was faster for us to get that. And then when after we got the monitors, the next one he says was, well, how about the age of all these computers? It's great to know what they are, but how do you do all that stuff? So then we had people going off and manually looking up the warranty of each computer or contacting them. I mean, it was craziness throughout this whole thing. I mean, this went on for years, and this is how the whole thing about Endpoint Insights started, was how can we do this in a completely automated fashion that we don't have to run around to every workstation and every computer to see it. So you can see by the results of the poll, we had about 2/3 of you who have lovingly had to go around running around to computers. I'm surprised a third had not, to be honest. But there you go. So
Be happy, enjoy it, consider yourself lucky that you were in the era of not having to do that horrible thing. If you're still doing that horrible thing, we are with you. We feel your pain because we've been there.
So there is a question I'll get to a little later on, the whole thing. But just looking at the chat, you know, a lot of people are saying that CM does a lot. People are doing physical inventories every year. They're talking about good luck with laptops not being on site. And I mean, COVID has brought that to light a lot, honestly. Just doing a quick scan of the rest of them. And oh yeah, so somebody was taking a laptop and a barcode scanner and recording everything. I mean, that worked. You know, I've been there, done that, but having also been at the government, they buy anything and everybody could buy it. So this is where the warranty information can come into place, because this is a big one that people wanted. Is, as I was in my original career, not only did they want to do this for cost recovery, but they also wanted to do it for budget planning. So this is where the computer replacement dashboard set came into existence. And this one, I'll let Marty run this one for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, kind of what you're taking a look at here is you're looking at, if we enter our lifespan for each of these devices, where are they going to fall in time that they're going to need to be replaced? So you can actually see, we can change any of these things right here. And then once we have that information, we can actually see, based on how long we're going to keep things, when each of these expire. Now, the question probably is going to come up, Garth, how do we know then, you know, we obviously, we created a start date for these computers, right? How actually are we getting the start date information for when these computers like started, if that makes sense?
So the start date or birth date. Oh, hey,
sure, there you go. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. So the birth date of these things are coming from the actual vendors themselves. So vast majority, well, all the vendors will tell you when the date it was manufactured, or will tell you the date the warranty started, or something along that lines. And it's this information that we can use to determine the age of the computer, and therefore help you put it into the right budget year to for budget planning purposes on it.
Yeah, and the other thing that's nice about all of these, so any of these reports where you see underlined items, you can kind of click on these and get a little bit more information. So if I wanted to know which ones are 1 year out, I just clicked on that the 1 year computer replacement costs. So here essentially is the list of ones that I have that are a 1 year out, essentially. So our replacement year isn't this year, but it's going to be next year on these. And because we're listed, we're sitting here in SSRS, we can obviously export these in any way that we want to do that as well.
So there's a couple of questions in here. So Sean's asking about, are we leveraging the CM database? And the answer is yes. All the data gets brought into the configuration manager database, and therefore you can do reporting on it. You can create collections on it if you're so inclined for that scenario. Okay, so I'm going to go to Chris's question. It says, what happens when inventory data of a system has been expired? And it went too quickly, so I didn't see the rest of it from configuration manager. So because everything ends up in configuration manager, if the device expires out of configuration manager, that information is also lost at that point in time. However, if you're using configuration manager, what I would recommend for you to do is to turn on the data warehouse, and then that data can be kept for 3 years. There is a slight configuration that you will have to do for that scenario. And then Scott asks, will this help keep track of leased equipment? It's a bit of a loaded question, and I'll answer it this way. If we can see the leased equipment lease end date, then absolutely. But what will end up happening with that is we'll get the birth date out of the device for sure. You'll be able to track that. If there's a specific thing you want us to look at, I encourage you to contact us. You know, Marty or myself will more than happy to look at this thing and try to make sure that your items are addressed. Did I miss anything? Okay, there's one in the chat. Can the inventory process pull information from another source? For an example, SCCM historical database, or can this pull information from another source? So what ends up happening is, because we populate it in configuration manager, and you can pull it into something like ServiceNow if you're so inclined, whatever your CMDB is from that, we will not pull from another database into configuration manager itself. At a high level, the whole process we look at configuration manager, we find all the devices in configuration manager, we send that off to our API, magic happens on the API, and information comes back and populates off your configuration manager database, and that's where all the reports are from that. Wow. Okay. Let's go to Sean's question here. So Sean, I'm going to answer it this way, and it's a bit of a loaded question. So you're asking, are there any MOF that are installed with this? For the warranty, technically there are no MOF edits for this. However, for Endpoint Insights itself, yes, we do client settings for that, aka MOF edits for that. All that happens as part of the setup on that. Answered live. Okay. Does this support multiple service accounts for data collection, EI, scanning, workstation labs to get all the server data? I'm not sure I quite understand that. What we go off and do is scan for each device from the particular vendor. So if HP has, we take that information and scan it off to HP, get the results back and send it back. I'm a little unclear what you mean by service accounts.
Yeah, and then maybe this will help with that question too. Essentially, so we're getting the information from the config manager database. So as long as the information is in there, we don't really care how it got in there. You know, if you're using different ways, I'm not not exactly sure, but if you're thinking you might need to get that information a different way, as long as it's in the database, we're getting the information from there.
Yeah, so when you say get the database, just for clarity, it's hardware inventory that we're picking that up from. So
Right.
we're getting the make, model, serial numbers from hardware inventory, and that is what's sent off to our
Cool.
Okay. Oh, so here's a question. How many vendors does the warranty information currently support? So the last time I looked, there was over 150 vendors that we support on this. Of course, we support all the normal ones of HP, IBM, Lenovo, Toshiba, Dell, Microsoft Surfaces. You pick the vendor, we'll support it. What ends up happening is if there is a new vendor that we don't know, what we do is end up contacting them and saying, how can we get the warranty from it? And then we add it in. Sometimes that requires us to talk to you so that they'll give us permission to collect that, but we'll contact everybody. Answered live. Done.
Great.
Oh, here we go. All right, so Lewis's question we'll answer a little bit later. And then there's Sean's question about Chromebooks. If it ends up in the config.man database, we'll do what we can to get that warranty on it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so getting us a little bit back toward where we were talking about. So we talked about computers. The other thing you mentioned is, so after we did, you went around and got computers, then you wrote something so that you could get the computer information, and then they said monitors.
Monitors, yeah. So they wanted to know how many monitors people had, and they wanted to know, the age and that sort of fun details on it.
Very cool. So let us look at, we have a similar replacement cost one for monitors as well. I'll go ahead and click on that. And if you look here, again, you can enter your monitor life and the amount of days that you'd like to keep it. We can absolutely grab whatever collection that you want to take a look at. We're going to look at our EI computers here. And then you can put the cost of a new monitor. Now, Garth and I had a little bit of a discussion about this the other day, saying $500 for a new monitor. Maybe that's COVID times or Canadian or something, because I can't remember the last time I spent $500 on a monitor. But anyway, you can put in whatever you like. Maybe it's $350 instead.
I said they were the 4K monitors, and you're going, oh, no, nobody buys 4K monitors.
I'm just looking at my desk, Garth. Just looking at my desk.
Looking at my desk, I got 4K right in front of me, man.
Oh man, I gotta ask somebody about getting a better monitor. So basically, with our monitor life and the cost, essentially what we can do is we can absolutely see kind of the same thing. So we can take a look at ones that are already longer, their life has already been exceeded by that time, and then which ones are coming up in different years. So you can absolutely see it here as well.
So monitor.
Go ahead.
I noticed that there's some that say internal. Do you know what internal
just going to bring that up? And if I think about an internal monitor, what I am thinking about is, for example, a laptop that would already have a monitor that is built in, your tablets, something that already has a monitor that's built in that isn't an external monitor, is where that internal monitor might show up.
Correct. So the other one that you'll notice on there, it does say virtual monitors on here. So if you have Hyper-V boxes or VMware boxes for that matter, what we'll do is we will count those things out, and there's no cost associated with replacing those items. That's how this comes into play. So there are a couple of questions in here, and the first one says, first one I'm going to answer is, will the monitor size be reported? So the answer to that is yes. And if Marty clicks up to the monitor folder in the breadcrumbs, here are all the reports in here. We're not going to go into this because that's a little bit of a left turn on the whole thing. But there is one in here that says count of monitors by size. something like that. There. So there is a monitor size in here, and you'll notice that you can also filter. I didn't think we were going to run this one. You can also filter out by internal and external, because this is one of the requests that we had, was if you have a laptop and it's got a 12-inch screen like the one I've got to the right here, you don't want that in your count, or maybe you do. So we gave you that option on it. So that's one of the things in here. One of the other questions that was asked earlier was, are any of these features in the community edition? So that is in reference to the right-click tools. And currently, the only thing that's part of Endpoint Insights in the community edition is the dashboard set within the console, the CM console itself. All of this thing is, all of Endpoint Insights does not have a community edition at this time. So we'll answer that one. How are you pulling monitor information? For instance, is that information being pulled from the video cable? If so, what video cables are supported? So Amanda's question. So there's a couple of different ways we're pulling the information in. It depends on what it is. So we will pull off things like how the monitor is connected to the device, and that's going to be pulled via the computer itself. The size will be pulled from the monitor itself on that. Same thing with the serial number will be pulled from the monitor itself, although there is a star next to that. Through some fancy footwork, the normal serial numbers are restricted to 13 characters, but through some fancy footwork of ours and discussion with vendors, we can extend that on select vendors. There's a standard called the EDID, which is extended something or other monitor information. And that's where we're collecting some of the details, but we're also collecting other details from Windows itself, from the monitor itself, that. So hopefully that answers your question. If there's more to it than that you'd like to do, I believe we've got 4 more webinars, and I remember what the next one is, but I don't remember the next 2 after that. But we'll, we can go strictly into monitors if that's something that you want to learn more about on things. And then there's one more question in here that I'm going to ask you, Marty, to move up to the Endpoint Insights folder itself. And that is, how many reports does Endpoint Insights have? And it's a bit of a loaded question, because there are about 150 reports, and everybody thinks that Endpoint Insights is about reports, and it's not really. It's about data. We give you the reports to expose the data for you as much as possible on things. So those 150 are broken down into the 6 categories, as I like to call them. And, there's everything from, as you saw, warranty and monitors, to docking stations, to the health of your configuration manager environment, to software updates, to software, user details. Basically, what we end up doing is try to give you what you need in your environment. And the more feedback you give us, the more likely you are to give us. One of the questions, so hopefully that answers your question about how many reports are in Endpoint Insights. In the chat, I just saw this. So can EIC monitors through docking stations? And the answer is yes. It will see monitors through docking stations. And it will see the connection type, how the monitor is connected via that docking station as well. There are some slight caveats to that, but the short version is yes, it will see the monitors, and it will see the how they're connected. So the follow-up question is, if a laptop was taken home and attached to one or two monitors, how can we distinguish between corporate-owned and personal monitors? So it's a bit of a loaded question. It's hard to tell between personal and corporate because at the end of the day, how do you know which is corporate and which is personal? What you can see is, if you noticed in the report early on, Marty had shown you active versus inactive. That allows you to track down monitors that were attached to a computer versus are attached to a computer. So it does allow you to see who was the last one attached to a particular monitor. And this is useful if you're trying to track down those scenarios.
Yeah, I would guess hopefully you maybe know the model and makes of corporate owned, and they're different maybe than what people purchase for home, or if you have serial numbers or something like that. Otherwise, there isn't necessarily going to be a sort by corporate versus home purchase monitors, unfortunately.
Hey, so we have an anonymous question. So Endpoint Insights is basically custom reports that expose data that is collected. In theory, given time and skill, you can create the same or similar reports correct. So Endpoint Insights is more about the data. What I mean by that is when you install Endpoint Insights, it installs a WMI provider on your workstations. And Marty's going to pick one of our random machines here. And from there, what ends up happening is we collect information that you're not going to get elsewhere. So things like what are the monitors attached onto it, who's in the local administrators group. Now, with enough time and effort and enough developers, you absolutely could do this exact same thing yourself. It's a lot of research and development on our part. The reports themselves, absolutely, you can create them. And one of the things that you'll have seen is some of our clients have taken the data that existed in Endpoint Insights and pulled it into Power BI reports or into a different report set and all the rest of that stuff for their environment. They want a different look and feel, whatever. The data is there in Configuration Manager that we inventory. So early on, I think it was Sean asked about the MOF edits. These are some of the MOF edits or client settings that we import and therefore inventory on all computers. So, map drives, map printers, programs, SQL version shares, all the rest of that fun stuff. And we're constantly extending this information. Hopefully that answers your question. So there's a question about, is there a way to add asset numbers for different devices? I'm going to assume that's talking about asset tags, and asset tags can be collected by CM inventory, and therefore you could do something along that lines. Is it directly part of Endpoint Insights? No, it is not directly related to Endpoint Insights. Wow, keep going. I think we're just at the next thing. We're going to move on to the next thing, and here we go. Oh yeah, we had the question about printers earlier that I said I was going to get to, and I didn't. Marty, can you go to where is that? I think it's users, and then map printers. So somebody asked about printers. So because printers are a user object, and because we inventory all the user printers that they're attached to, we also get all of their local and network printers that they're attached to, and you can see all of that information. Which then leads into the question about can this report on peripherals, for examples, cameras, handheld barcode scanners, attached printers. So it does do the printers, as I've alluded to. For cameras and barcode scanners, there's nothing specific about those at that point in time. However, there's this lovely website called ideas at recastsoftware.com. And I encourage you to put in those ideas. They end up in my inbox, me and a couple others, and we're constantly reviewing this. And from there, you never know. If there's a specific need for this, come and talk to us and we can see what we can do. So let me get rid of that one. If we put company asset number in WMI address space, can that be pulled? So for Nick's question, yes, absolutely. Configuration manager itself can inventory all that. That is not something and you need endpoint insights to do. This is maybe one of the examples where you would extend off one of the reports to add the asset tag into it. I'll tell you honestly, at one point in time, there's a report in here under the warranty that says report for the device, and it gives you the start and end dates and all the fun stuff. I had this illusion of putting the barcodes in the SSRS report as well. It was a cute idea, but it wasn't popular enough for me to do at that point. And I say me, but there's a whole team behind me, including Marty and Gina and Jeff, who, is out today, Was there anything else we were going to talk about in this section of the thing, Marty?
I don't think so. Did we have a poll about
what was our
devices?
I forget what our second poll was.
We have a poll on what type of hardware information do you want?
There you go. Let's go with that one.
All right.
Did you know that we can't vote on this?
I did notice that. It says right at the bottom, host and panelists cannot vote. That doesn't sound right.
I know. I tried to vote for the last one and it won't let me vote.
What type of information did you want?
I want it all.
Yeah, the more the better. I figured that's what you
said. I mean, it seems that inevitably that when I was working for the Canadian government, I could never give them enough information. And then when I was doing my consulting work, I could never give people enough information. There was always something. And I mean, just look at our questions on here. Can you get handheld scanners? Can you get barcodes? I mean, I've even had somebody ask me, can I get all the Windows Hello devices that exist out there? So these are the type of things that are people are looking for. So
yeah, absolutely. The more I can get, the better.
See, you just want it all.
So to add insult to injury, it did say that even though I couldn't vote, it said at the bottom, you did not answer this question.
Yeah, it's just the same thing for me too.
That's excellent. Cool. So I think we wanted to do just a quick tease of what we're going to talk about our next webinar and then go into something completely different as well.
Sure.
Yeah. So next webinar, we are going to be talking a little bit about what happens when you need to replace the device, right? We talked about life cycles of devices. What happens when you get to the end of life cycles on devices and you need to replace them? What is a way that we can get everything ready so that when a user comes and gets their new computer, they're ready to go and they're ready to work. So that's coming up in our next webinar, but we're not done here yet, are we, Garth?
Yeah, that's next month's thing. So, an hour before the presentation, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. A couple hours. Yeah, no, we definitely worked on this last week. Cool. Awesome. So what do you want to talk about next, Garth?
I was just doing a quick look at the chat because
oh, sure.
It really doesn't click. So people are saying monitors they're trying to get just clear. We can run the user connected printer report and show. Yes. So Lewis is, I'm probably really butchering that name, but he's looking to find out if we see printers that are for the user? And the answer is yes, we will get that. Because of the way printers are attached to an individual, one of the things that Endpoint Insights does is it gets all the details for a user. And this is where, if Marty, you click on the user breadcrumb, yeah, we will get everything from what map printers, what mapped drives they have. And what's a little not clear, it's in another folder, is we also get user installed software. So think of like Kindle readers, Firefox, anything that you don't need UIC for as well. So we get that from what's installed as a user. Then there's a question about Zebra printers and handheld scanners. So the Zebra printers should show up in this thing. Handheld scanners, probably not, but I encourage you to file something in the ideas page, and you never know. There's a whiteboard over here that you guys can't see, and there's a laundry list of things that me and my team are working on. Is the endpoint license model information available on the website? So people are asking about licensing for Endpoint Insights. At the end of this thing, I think there's a poll question or something that they'll ask about if you want to learn more about pricing and all the rest of that. I encourage you to say yes to that, and someone will reach out to you and say, here's a little bit more, and give you answer your questions. If there's particular tech questions you have, generally Marty will be on those things, but Marty and I are good buddies and are constantly talking to each other, whether it's by Slack or by Zoom or whatever. So there you
go. All right. And I think we have one. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, go.
Well, I was going to say, the question is, can we manually enter information? I'm thinking of how we would track brand new equipment that is in inventory but is not in use yet. What would you say to that one, Garth? I was going to say, get that into Config Manager right away. Just go ahead and get it right in there, and then we can get information on it. And Config Manager is going to hold on to it by default for however long you have it set to keep the information. So, as you're building out devices, go ahead and get them into the inventory, and then we can report on them right away.
So, yeah, that would be my answer, is get them into Config Man. The second they're in Config Man, we would be able to get you the warranty on it. Is it possible to make a report of non-corporate company devices if you have a full list of serial numbers which are company owned? Our security team would be happy to hear about new software. So you're giving away one of our tips. I can tell you in webinar 5, there was a little trick, but I'm going to spoil it just a hair. I'm not going to show it. I'm going to ask Marty to go to the Endpoint Insights and go to the software category, and then go under software inventory. And then near the second last report on this thing says software installed in X number of days. Now, this one will not tell you whether it's corporate or not, but it will show you what's being installed in the last X number of days within your environment. So that's a little teaser on the whole thing, which kind of goes into what our whole next story is, or next topic is all about, which is about software audit, like how to do an audit on the whole environment. So one of the things that I always laugh about is you go into an environment and somebody says, I want to see every software title on every computer in the environment. And what people don't understand is how much data that actually is. So just to help with that, we've got a basic audit tool. So if you go under software inventory there, Marty, and then pick the basic software stats, what this is going to do is tell you how many computers are in an environment, how many distinct software titles there are, how many software titles total there are within this whole environment, and then show you what are the max, average, and min software titles there are for a device, and ultimately show you how many pages this report will be. So you're talking, if you were to say all the pages of doing all, what is that? 650,000 pages, you would end up with 8,200 pages of a report, which of course no manager is ever going to read. And I always laugh about that because they say, I need it, and all the rest of that sort of stuff. And ultimately, one of the things that about this was, if you click on the blog there, Marty, this was one of the things that I got into a whole pet peeve about. And I worked with an accounting auditor who talked about how you're supposed to audit software within your environment. So we wrote this whole blog post to give you the whole stats. And that's what the whole premise of this. Oh, by the way, you know, you could put in whose birthday it is in the, I always love that. So we did this whole blog post. I encourage you to check it out. A matter of fact, let me,
I can post it real quick if you want.
let me drop it into the chat for people to be able to go off and grab it as they see fit. But basically, the whole premise about this is, you know, you don't want to go see all the list of all software within the environment. What you do want to do is go off and see a subset of the software in your environment. And usually it's only the software titles that you care about. What I mean by that is, which ones are costing you money? So think of Microsoft Visio or whatever. So if Marty goes back to the reporting point, so we both copy and pasted that same blog into there, into the chat. One of the things that you can see is how many software titles a computer has. And you can see with the maximum, you've got 397 for a particular computer. You can also notice that things like SQL Server Management Studio has 5,088 titles, which is kind of interesting because there's only 2,000 computers in here. And what that is telling us, particularly when you go look at it, is that SQL Server Management Studio is installed multiple times or has multiple entries within add and remove programs, and therefore is going to show up multiple times on a computer. And this is how you end up with more than what the number of computers in your environment. Microsoft is really bad for that. So think of things like, well, SQL Server Management Studio. Office is really bad for that sort of stuff. So this is where you'll see that. It also gets worse when you have multiple languages, because the language will show up elsewhere, and you'll see multiple entries for the same software title. So from here, Marty, let's go to the software inventory. And then we're going to, well, which of the two do we want? Do we want to do the software dashboard, or do we want, yeah, let's do the software dashboard. So go up one level. Just,
oh, yep, for sure. There we go.
Go there, pick your collection. Pick a smaller one for me.
How about we do this?
Okay. So from here, what you can see from this set is that it shows you all the publishers on the left side. And if you pick on, which one you want to pick on? How about Google? Let's pick on Google. You drilled down, so that was one of the cool things. Go back.
Sorry.
You know, there's a back button on the report itself, eh?
Yes.
Okay. So if you click the plus sign next to Google, what you're going to see is that there's two different software titles on there. And if you expand off Chrome, look at that. We can actually see the versions of all of that. And depending on where you click on this thing, so click on the, no, don't expand it, but click on that. I know you're pointing to the screen and you can't see where I'm pointing to. So what you can see is here are the versions and the computers that have it. Now, what I'm going to ask Marty to do is there's a little drop down in the center of the screen that's hiding all the prompts. I'm going to ask him to expand that. And you can see in here that you've got the prompts, but if he expands the version, he can select all of the versions in here if he was so inclined and rerun the same report. And you can see all the computers and all the versions on it. Additionally, if he goes to the application one to the left, he can select all of the applications. And generally, I check the versions as well. Just make sure there wasn't an extra version that got sent. See,
There
was
is. Yep, you're right.
And then you can see all the applications that are associated with Google. So this report set is designed for you to be able to go from top to bottom on this and see those software titles. Now I picked Chrome, but it's just an example in the whole scenario.
I think there's a neat little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg that you pulled out here by talking about this, though, is you can actually see on this list of devices something that we can pull a little bit more information on that Config Manager doesn't necessarily pull. So if you look at the source for where these are installed, you see things like computer, 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 user, computer. And the difference between those is you can tell these are installed when it says source and installed computer. That essentially means that this was installed as local admin. So when I tried to run the Google installer on the demo 8 is my box. So when I tried to run the installer for Google Chrome, it said, hey, do you want to install this as an admin? I said yes, and then it did it. The Google Chrome Canary, it asked, hey, do you want to install this as an admin? And I said no. But like Google Chrome does, it said, well, that's cool. Do you want to install it anyway? And I said, of course I do. So I installed it in my user profile. So this is actually showing both a user installed program as well as the computer installed programs, the local admin installed ones here.
And just to be clear, anything that's user installed is not inventoried by Configuration Manager. That's one of the things that Endpoint Insights does, is that it will inventory all these software titles that the user has installed and then bring that back into Configuration Manager and expose that information. So we have two questions in here, and I'm going to go with Nick's question first, which is software is important for security reasons and license. Is there a way to compare the number of software titles you own and what is approved from? So the first part of that question about what software is installed, yes. You can see from the dashboard, we can see the number of counts and all the rest of that stuff. What is approved from security? Well, we don't have access to that. I mean, yeah, we don't have access to it. So there would be no direct correlation between that. I mean, it's a great idea for us to implement a whole system around that, but that is not currently exist within the environment. Hopefully that answer. Is the report that shows only the source, user or computer for all devices in an environment? So it will show currently, and I use the word currently, it will show a combined of both the user and computers. But if you join us for one of our later webinars, I'm trying not to give away the secret. Let's just put it that way. But if you join us for one of our later webinars, yes, you will be able to see what is only computer or what is only user for that sort of stuff. But as you point out, if Marty was to click on Win10 Demo 8, the one that has the user installed software, you can see what is user installed. And apparently he's got Kindle Reader installed on this demo machine as well. Oh, a couple of other things on here as well. So OneDrive on here as well. So you can see all the software, but in a later webinar, we'll talk about the sources a little bit more. That doesn't register. I'm thinking of Oracle. So the way Endpoint Insights does work is it is inventorying stuff that is in the add remove program of the user. So if Oracle does not install in the add remove programs for the user, then no, it will not. Yeah, we're not inventorying that at this time. I mean, again, I encourage you to put everything on the feature request page, and you never know. So Paul, I'm sorry, Paul, I know I skipped over your question a couple of times there. I did really want to get to it. And the question is enterprise right-click tools and endpoints two separate products and priced separately? And the answer is yes, they are two separate products and they are priced separately. If you're an enterprise client, I encourage you to talk to your salesperson and they can set you up with something on that. Or at the end, I believe we got a poll at the end of this that will talk about would you like pricing on it? Apparently we're 5 minutes. Man, that went a lot quicker. I thought we were running short on time, and
that never happens.
Never happens.
Just a quick, just to work off of that as well. They right-click tools and Endpoint Insights can be two completely separate products as well. So if your security team, for whatever reason, said no to right-click tools, this is just an example. For some reason said no to right-click tools, but they would really, really like this Endpoint Insights reporting. Hey, that is a possibility. It can be purchased completely separately from the other.
Correct. They are two very distinct products, although we're trying to make them work better together.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Tuesday, what is the required to ramp up? Just license fee to plug in, or is an additional server requirement? So Nick is asking about what are the requirements for Endpoint Insights. It's a bit of a loaded question. If you're using the Recast agent already, then effectively all you really need to do is put in the license key on your RMS server. And I think there's literally, I'll call it 5 minutes of setup on the RMS server to do. If you don't have RMS and aren't using the Recast agent, then you do want to set up the RMS server, which can be installed on your configuration manager server. And then you want to deploy the agent out to all of the workstations, because this is a lot of what we're doing is collecting information off the device is through this WMI provider. So once that's done, I like to say that you can have this up and running inside of and I'm air quoting an hour, and start seeing results in air quoting an hour. But it really isn't that much long. I believe Becky is one of our onboarding specialists. She's on here, and she can tell you for sure how long all this stuff takes from her experience, but I'm air quoting the hour.
Right on. Well, good.
So there's 3 or 4 more webinars
There are
coming in. So as you alluded to, the next one is we're talking about device refreshes and how you've captured all this information, how you can use it to refresh your devices. So think of like a white glove scenario. You're trying to make sure that this user doesn't have anything at that point in time. Like the device just shows up and they're good to go from that.
Cool. The next one after that, we're going to talk also about Endpoint Insights and right-click tools. We're trying to talk about better together. How, if you do have both, you can use them. And maybe even how you could use the community edition of right-click tools with Endpoint Insights as well.
Correct. I forget what number 4 is. So different data. Oh, so yes, all right, yes. So this one of the things that we were trying to do is you collect this data within Configuration Manager. How can you leverage it within Configuration Manager? So for an example, you got a user installed application. Why can't I go off and uninstall it off of that client's workstation? Now you're going to say, well, how does that work? Well, this is where we're going to show you how you can uninstall that software on it. And that's just one example. Things about being able to look at all of your servers and saying, okay, I want to decommission this server and it's got a printer on it. Who's affected? How can I go off and remap that to someplace else for that person?
Very good. And then finally, it wouldn't be Endpoint Insights without some hidden gems that Garth has. So he's going to come up with and show us some of his favorite Endpoint Insights hidden features. So that'll be interesting to look at too. I'm excited about that one, actually.
We've already even started the list over.
We have.
We literally have started the list on here. I mean, one of the ones that it's really not a hidden gem, but it's the fact that you can export all these reports to a PDF and they fit nicely on a PDF and they look well. So they're great for handing off to your manager that way. So that's one of the things on there.
Awesome.
So,
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say.
I heard Gina. Gina.
Yes, it looks like we are at time. Just want to say thank you everyone for joining. Just real quickly, I'm going to put up a poll real quick. If you would like to receive pricing or additional information on Endpoint Insights and just get more information on what Garth and Marty spoke about, feel free to answer and someone will reach out to you after the webinar. Garth, Marty, any closing statements?
are we going to announce the winners?
Yes.
Okay.
Just want to make sure you guys got your last bid in. But
no, I don't. I'm good.
so we have 4 winners from today's webinar. We have Carolyn Daly, Amanda Linders, Colin Berneman, and Charles Beasley. You will get an email in a couple of days to accept the award or the gift certificate. So keep an eye out for that. But again, thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Nice.
All right. Thanks everyone for showing up, and let us know if you have any questions. Absolutely, in an email or something.
Or Twitter. I mean, I'm on Twitter.
Yeah, there you go. Twitter will work as well.
You know, I don't always check it every day.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.